sleeplessness and obsession, waswasa?
When something is going out of control and you don't have control over it, then that's harmful. If you are in control and according to your rational understanding, according to your religious, sources, you think that this is good or this much is good, and you know what you are doing and how much you are doing, then this is okay. But waswasa is when something is going out of our control and someone wants to take us under his control or its control. That's the problem. So you have to see what is the measure and what is the impact. If it helps you to improve, it's good. If it helps you to make always things better and better, this is good. Otherwise, it can be a problem.
Thank you very much. The next question is a little of a general question again. In your experience, Sheikh, what are some aspects of our faith that non-Muslims question or want to know most about?
It depends on the context. Normally, non-Muslims in the West, they want to know more about few things. If they are people who follow news and hear things about, what some Muslim groups do or some, Muslim parties do or some Islamic countries or governments do, then for them, political aspect of Islam is important and they want to understand what is the major features of Islamic politics. For some people, the issue of peace and war becomes especially important. And again, this is something that is a result of the situation in the world in which there are tensions and conflicts and wars. For some people, spiritual aspects of Islam are very important. They want to know more about Islamic spirituality, about Islamic prayer. Some people, issue of family is important. So these are main areas that people normally show great interest, and each of them, of course, can be subdivided.
Follow-up question on the same aspect here. On the spiritual aspect,
yes.
Is there any specific area that you have heard most questions being asked?
In the spiritual?
In the spiritual aspects, yes.
There are many things. Sometimes, they ask about some aspects of spirituality, like, for example, about prayer, about fasting. For example, in the months of Ramadan, they like to know more about fasting, prayer, alms, and zakat. Sometimes they want to know more about Islamic spirituality in a general way, as a whole. So what are the main aims and objectives? What are the methods and techniques? How can you measure your progress in your spirituality? How much your spirituality affects your relation with other people? So these are some of major questions about spirituality when it comes to interreligious gatherings. Sometimes it's also what we call a scriptural reasoning. So it's a kind of can be a spiritual exercise if you reflect on the holy books, on scripture, but with a mind which is ready for calling upon God and prayer.
Yeah. I'll go to the next question.
Yes.
Cultural differences play a role in some of the misunderstandings that non-Muslims have about Islam. In a discussion, the topic of marriage came up, and how early should a boy or a girl marry was a point of contention. How do you answer questions such as these without offending or being argumentative?
You have to be very careful. So first of all, you have to understand what is Islamic position here. And this is not easy because sometimes Islamic position can vary from one context to another context, from one place or culture to another. So you have to understand what would Islam wants from us in this particular context in which I live. But also at the same time, you have to have wisdom to understand how much of that can be shared and said and publicized. So do we need, for example, to say that in which age legally a girl can marry or a boy can marry? And how are you going to explain this? How are you going to differentiate between legal aspect, moral aspect, how we are going to talk it in a way that is not misunderstood? So you have to be careful, you have to plan and see if you can sharing and explaining without difficulty and people would appreciate or at least would say it makes sense, it's good. But if it is anything less than that and people are not going to say it's mixed, it doesn't, they are not going to say it makes sense, then maybe there is no need to get into that discussion, because at least the result of your discussion should be that people say it makes sense, even if they don't accept it.
Sheikh, these are all the questions we actually have from everybody at the moment. How would you like to proceed? Would you like to continue with some words of advice for us at this stage?
Because I'm worried we may not get time. If we can have introduction and then at the end, if some time remains, I will finish it with some words. If it's not, at least we have listened to everyone.
Inshallah, we will proceed with that.
Yes.
So let me start with